August 26, 1990, Jazz Party 1990 from Minneapolis. And Bob Wilber, it's good to see you back in this territory.
Thank you, Leigh. It's always good to see you. We've been friends for many, many years.
Well, I think back to just beyond your Scarsdale days and maybe just on the edge of your self-study with Sidney Bechet.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's going back a little ways. Yeah.
Where has your career led you, and what part of the world are you living in?
Well, Leigh, Pug and I have been living in England for 5 years now, and of course she's from England, so her being a British citizen makes it easy for me to become a resident over there, and we really love the quality of life over there. And of course, they've always appreciated jazz. They've always had a good feeling for it, going back to the 30s. I have an excellent band out of London, about a 15-piece band, and we do a lot of tributes to people like Benny Goodman. We've recreated the famous 1938 Carnegie Hall concert, I think 3 times already, and they keep wanting it more. We did an interesting project last year. We did the world premiere of Duke Ellington's The Queen Suite. That was a work that he wrote for the Queen after he met her in the 50s, and recorded it and pressed one record, which was presented to the Queen with the words, "These are for your ears only, Your Royal Highness. Henceforth I will not be playing this work because I did it for you." And he never did. He never played the work in its entirety. After he died, Norman Granz got a hold of the tape and issued it on Pablo. So that's how we were able to transcribe the music. But it was actually the first time it had ever been played in public in England, and it was a big thrill. And they had Princess Anne from the royal family was there representing Buckingham Palace. And then we did also crescendo and diminuendo in blue on the concert, and we did black, brown, and beige too. It's quite an ambitious undertaking. So I'm doing interesting. I think most of my work probably is celebrating the great things in the past. I think they deserve to be celebrated.
In line with that celebration, as we look at Duke Ellington's music, particularly that grand tribute to the monarch of the United Kingdom, what did you discover in the music after you transcribed it that fascinated you?
Well, it's kind of a unique little work. I mean, it's only about 20 minutes, but it's first of all, the different movements are descriptive of events in nature. Now, we don't think of Duke as a naturalist. You know, you figure he sleeps most of the day, and he was an urban man. But it's all about things that he observed when he was on the road with the band, and the movements have titles like let me see, Apes and Peacocks, and Frogs. What's the other one? Lightning Bugs and Frogs, things like that. You know, and I think it's a little gem of a work. It's quite unique. It's quite different from anything else Ellington ever wrote.
It seemed to me that in just some brief excursions interviewing Duke, that he was always, in quotes, looking for the elusive melody.
He was a melody man, you know. No matter what he wrote, there was always a beautiful melody there. And let's face it, that's what people can identify with. If you hear a melody that you can remember, that makes it a good piece of music. I always say, if it's a good melody, whether it's by Brahms or Jelly Roll, that's what it's all about.
Another aspect of your celebration of history and the contributions, the Benny Goodman Carnegie Hall concert embodies a spirit of a time that was kind of naive and hopeful and optimistic, maybe not as cynically jaded. And what sort of an impact does it have as you perform it?
Well, of course, we did the first one was 50 Years to the Night in Carnegie Hall in 1988, and that was an incredible evening. I just received the tapes, which I had never heard. The whole concert was taped, and you can feel the excitement in the audience. We had people sitting on the stage just like it was done originally. We had only 2 microphones It was the same kind of sound. Usually you play Carnegie Hall today and you have a sea of mics, and the acoustics are superb. There's no need for microphones. It was a great evening because Rachel Goodman, Benny's daughter, was there and presented Benny's clarinet to Isaac Stern, who represented the Carnegie Hall. And of course, Isaac Stern was the one who got the interest up to save Carnegie Hall from the Wreckers Ball. I mean, they were really going to tear it down, and he was the one. So he was an important person. And they're starting an archives at Carnegie Hall. Benny's clarinet was the first addition to the archives. So, and we did the actual concert. Every song that was played in the original concert we did, including a recreation of Jess Stacy's famous piano solo in Sing, Sing, Sing. And we did the same thing in England at Royal Festival Hall, and the interest there was tremendous. So we've had to repeat it twice. The last time was less than 3 months ago. So there's a lot of people all over the world that are interested in the whole tradition of jazz, more so than perhaps 20 years ago.
In the music materials themselves, as you began to put the program back together again, what intrigued you?
Well, for instance, I originally got a hold of a lot of these scores from Benny himself when he was still living. I did a tribute to Benny on his 75th birthday out at Waterloo Village in New York, and nobody else seemed to be doing it. He said, "Gee, this is a great man. He's 75 years old." So Benny was flattered that I wanted to do a thing, and he let me go into his library. And, for instance, we unearthed a piece called "Life Goes to a Party," which was written by Harry James. And not only was it arranged and written by Harry James, but it was copied. The parts were copied by Harry, too. He was the world's worst copyist. So the guys really struggled to read these notes to try to figure out what Harry meant. And the parts didn't have the names of the instruments on it. He had all the names of the musicians. And for Ziggy Elman's part, he just drew a head with a big nose. And it just said nose, because Ziggy was known as Nose. That was his nickname. Things like that were fascinating. You felt you were back there in 1938.
Between these two monumental projects, as you look at them, what does it say about those days and times in terms of the way we're living now and lifestyles?
Well, I think I agree with you. They were naive kind of times, but I think it was a great time for culture, particularly in the United States. Coming out of the Depression, people had a really rough time in the early 30s, and they really appreciated the finer things in life, and things were getting better. I think a reason that Benny was so popular was that his music was full of optimism and joy, and that's in 1935. That's what people wanted, So I think it was a naive time, but fascinating. And I think young people today, they're going back watching those old movies on TV, and they're picking up on the old styles. They're all fascinated with it. The other project, which is part of this, really the same thing, is a movie which right this moment is being shot in Davenport, Iowa. The movie is called Bix, B-I-X. And I'm doing all the music for it. And I think we're going to do it right this time, Leigh. I think we're going to have a really genuine, authentic jazz movie that a jazz musician can go to and say, yeah, that's it. And we haven't had that yet. Keep your fingers crossed.
August 26th, Bob Wilber, among your new projects, the Bix Beiderbecke biography.
Yeah, it's a film called Bix, and it's being done by an Italian film company, directed by Pupi Avati, who's one of Italy's great art movie directors today. Pupi was a clarinetist and had a very fine traditional jazz band in his college days. It's been a 30-year-old dream to do a movie about Bix, and he has researched everything that could possibly be found out about Bix. The company has bought the Beiderbecke home in Davenport, Iowa, and restored it to the way it was when Bix was growing up. And as of right now, at this moment, they're shooting the film in Davenport.
You're doing the descriptive music and the soundtrack.
Yeah. Well, I'd like to say that we got the one man in the world who is the right man to play Bix's horn. That's Tom Pletcher from Michigan. Tom, do you know Tom? I mean, he's devoted his life to Bix, and he doesn't do anything else. I mean, he doesn't play in any other style, but he captures Bix, and you really hear this soundtrack. I mean, it's really incredible.
How many different kinds of combination small groups and did you use in big band?
We have everything. I mean, we start out with Bix's first experience hearing a live band and sitting in with the New Orleans Rhythm Kings. And Kenny DeVerne plays the clarinet part of Leon Ropolo. And then we have Bix with Hoagie Carmichael, his first chance he ever gets to play with a live musician, Hoagie. We have a brilliant English pianist, Keith Nichols, who recreates the white piano style of the 20s, which is quite different than Fats Waller and Jimmy Johnson. It was a unique thing. Nobody plays that way today. The way Poopy said to me when we embarked on this project, he said, I want this music to sound strange but wonderful. And I think we've captured it. I have very high hopes for this project.
Bob Wilber, it's always a pleasure to touch base with you and share the experience and new projects, and I wish you well. Thanks for stopping by.
Thank you, Leigh. Thank you. It's been a pleasure.